We recently started a little bit of a mini series here on the Mark Roden channel where we do certain different types of cars, whether it's coupes, JDM cars, race cars, all different kinds of things. And then I give you one option for every single price range from $25,000 all the way down to $1,000. Obviously, the way it works is we start with $25K, I give you a car, then we do $20K, 15, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I always say this at the start of every single one of these videos. Do not expect the number, like the cars for under $2,000 to actually be good cars. They're just options that you can buy. Do I actually recommend buying them? No. Almost any car under 2K is absolutely just hoopty in a half nowadays. So, unfortunately, they're not really the best. But they are available under there if you ever do need one. Anyway, without further ado, let's get right into the video with the first car for less than $25,000. For only $25K, I forgot to tell you guys, but this video is going to be European cars for less than every budget. But for under 25K, it's the Porsche Cayman. Don't get used to the name Porsche because they're a very expensive car brand, so it's really nice when you get a Porsche that's actually somewhat cheap, and the Cayman is one of those. And in my opinion, I actually like the Cayman better than I like a lot of just the 911 Carreras personally. Turbo S's, that's a different story, but the Carreras, I love the Caymans way better than them. The first gen Cayman came with a 3.4 liter flat six that makes 295 freaking hog powers, and it's rear wheel drive, of course. Now I'm pretty sure this is mid-engined, which is interesting because, as we all know, the 911s are rear engine, so having a mid-engine Porsche is a little interesting. It's actually exactly the same thing as the Porsche Boxster, except it has a roof, but it's just so much cooler with that roof. It also has a lot more stability since it has the roof now. It has all the frame, unibody bologna in the roof. And it's just a much better car. I just love it so much. I love the Porsche Cayman, and they're surprisingly cheap. For under 25K, like, what? For less than $20,000, it is going to a car that when I was 12 years old, I wanted more than anything else in this world, the Mercedes C63 AMG W204. Now, unfortunately, you cannot get the Black Series, which is the one that I actually really wanted when I was that age, because it had the spoiler and the canards, and it looked a little bit more mean. But the normal C63 AMG is still an absolute monster. It comes with a 6.2 liter V8 making 451 horsepower, and it is rear wheel drive. Now there is one massive downside to this car, and that is that it's a Mercedes, so it's unreliable, it's expensive to fix, it doesn't come with a manual transmission, and it's a little bit heavy. So, pick your poison there. That's kind of why I'm a BMW boy. Over the time, I kind of realized that BMW is more for the spirited driving route, whereas Mercedes is more comfortable and for the guy who just wants a nice car. But either way, the C63 AMG still to this day is such a beast. I saw one in freaking New York City one time and it was cutting up in traffic. I don't like when people do that cutting up stuff. I think it's ridiculous, but the car itself was really cool. Less than $15,000 is a car that could possibly be my next car, actually, because I really like these a lot and I really want one. The BMW 428i F32. Now, the M4 is obviously the much more wanted car of this generation, but sadly the M4s are still way over $25,000, so you're not finding them under 15K. But for under 15K, this is still an incredible deal. It comes with a 2-liter turbocharged inline-4 making 240 horsepower, and it is rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. You can get the X-Drive option, and then it's all-wheel drive, obviously. It is awesome. Now, the normal 3 Series, the F30 of this generation, is significantly cheaper, and it's exactly the same thing, except it's not a coupe. So if you just would rather just have 4 seats, or if you just want to spend less money, but you want the same platform, then obviously go with that. But if you want the looks, which in my opinion, the F32 4 Series looks a whole lot better than a sedan, you're gonna have to spend a little bit more, but that's so worth it, in my opinion, dude. It looks like an M4. It's a baby M4 for 15K. For less than $10,000, breaking its way into the 10K barrier, is going to the wonderful Audi S5 8T. Now, this car is going to be a little hard for you to find under $10,000. There is only a couple options when I looked it up, but they were all at least running. They did have a little bit higher miles, but still, in my opinion, absolutely worth it. They come with a 4.2 liter supercharged V8 making 354 horsepower, and they are all-wheel drive. That's incredible for under 10K. There's not many cars out there that are making 350 horsepower under 10K. Now, it is an Audi with a supercharged V8 in it, so do not expect to have the best reliability. But then again, it is an Audi, so you got a lot more comfort, and you still have a manual transmission, and it's all-wheel drive, so you could drive it in winter areas. So it's kind of like a pick-and-grab thing. If you need the reliability, then get the A5. The A5 is obviously not the same thing in terms of power, but it looks the same. It has the same comfort in it and all that stuff. It's just a lot slower and a lot cheaper. For less than $9,000 is a car that I've put in my top 3 for my budget cars under 10K lists all the time. The BMW 335i E92. I still to this day would argue that the 335i E92 is the best car for under 10K in terms of like a sports car. It checks all the boxes. It comes with a 3-liter twin turbocharged inline 6 making 300 horsepower. That's more than enough horsepower. It's rear wheel drive and all wheel drive also, by the way. It's offered as both, so you can get whatever you want on that terms. In terms of looks, it looks great. It's not too over top, but it's not boring either. It has a ton of mods for it, so it's super fun to modify, and they're all relatively cheap as a BMW is going to get, obviously. And yes, the N54 can get a little bit unreliable, which is the motor that's in the car, but guess what? Guess what? That's why we're car guys, buddy. We fix things, okay? Except for, we fix them, man. And I just love BMW in general, so that's also probably the main reason, to be honest. 8K. $8,000 hairs is going to the VW, which stands for Very Western GTI Mark 6, my friend. Obviously, I was kidding. It's the Volkswagen GTI Mark 6. It's a hatchback. I'm not a biggest fan of hatchbacks, but GTIs are interesting to say the least. I've had actually the pleasure of being able to drive a Mark 6 GTI before, and it was a very well-rounded car. They come with a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4, making 210 horsepower, and it is front-wheel drive. Now, it's obviously not going to be breaking any sound barriers. The GTIs aren't necessarily fast when you first get them, but you can modify them to make them quicker. Just don't expect this thing to ever be like a super fast race car. It's more just a combination of everything that you kind of want in a like first car, you know? It's like, it's got the reliability, it's got the space, it's pretty comfortable, it looks pretty decent, it's quick around corners and fun to drive and very forgiving. It just looks a little bit like an egg, and I know GTI guys are probably gonna, you know, come rappelling through my doors right now like it's Rainbow Six Siege and slap me across the face, but listen, they just look a little bit like an egg. Coming in at 7K is going to the only SUV of this list with the Audi Q7. I decided to put one SUV in this list even though I really didn't want to, just so that any of you guys that are looking for something bigger or off-road guys get a little bit of a get your fix out of this like I'm a drug dealer. And the Audi Q7 is a pretty good option for under 7K in my opinion. They come with a 4.2-liter V8 making 350 horsepower, and they are all-wheel drive. That is pretty impressive, obviously. V8 making 350 horsepower, but it's also in a very heavy SUV, so do not expect to be rocketing past all the girlies in this thing. In terms of looks, I actually I'm gonna be 100 P with you. Kind of looks a little weird, okay? I'm not the biggest fan of the looks of the Audi Q7. It looks kind of like a bean, you know, and that's okay. There are some bean cars out there, like the new C63 Mercedes looks like a bean too. But I'm just saying, it looks like a bean. Not the biggest fan of the looks. Reliability is probably not that great either because it's a V8 Audi. Coming in for $6,000 is going to the wonderful Porsche 944. Yeah, that's right, buddy. There's another Porsche on this list. I bet you guys were expecting that last one to be the last one. Wrong. Here's another one. It's the Porsche 944. I forgot about this car, to be honest. I haven't talked about it in quite some time, so I'm happy to be able to talk about it again. It comes with a 2.5-liter inline 4, making 163 horsepower, and it is rear-wheel drive. Now, there are higher turbocharged options, but those are going to cost you a little bit more and definitely not going to be under $6,000. But here's the thing that I got to say about the 944. Now, is it one of the more boring Porsches ever made? Yeah, it probably is the most boring Porsche ever made besides the Boxster. But Jeremy Clarkson, he drove one of these to say his final words to his father, and he says that the Porsche 944 is all right to him. So if it's all right to Jeremy Clarkson, it's all right to me. It's a good car. For less than $5,000, we are going to get back into the world of Bavarian Motorworks with the BMW 540i E39. That's what BMW stands for, by the way. And that was not a joke. That's actually what BMW stands for. For the longest time, I thought it stood for maybe something like British Motorworks. But then I realized it was made by Germany. And so I was like, wait, that can't be happening. It can't be true. So I looked it up and I was like, no, wait, Bavarian? What does that even mean? Anyway, the E39 540i comes with a 4.4-liter V8, making 290 horsepower, and it is rear-wheel drive. That's right. You can get a car with pretty close to 300 horsepower. That's a BMW, so it's pretty cool too. And you get that BMW, you know, clout. Who's that guy that sang the Beamer Boys song? That Lil Peep. You can be like Lil Peep in this thing for less than 5K. You get 290 horsepower. It is a V8. German V8s aren't necessarily the most reliable in the world, but it's an older V8, so it's probably got a little bit more pep in its step in terms of reliability. It's also just really comfortable, really good looking, really underrated. E39s are incredibly underrated, so that's why they're so cheap. And if you don't want the V8, you can get any of the other options. There's 530i's, 535i's. You can get one of those for also under 5K. Less than 4K, however, let's stay in the Bavarian family with the BMW 328i E36. You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. The E36 is on almost every single one of my cheap cars lists, and people get mad at me for putting it here, but it's gonna stay because it's a good option, and I don't like to lie to people, okay? It's a very good option for less than $4,000. They come with a 2.8 liter inline six, making 190 horsepower, and it is rear-wheel drive, of course. And it has kind of pretty much everything about the E39 before, except it's a lot more reliable and also a lot more slow. So you kind of get a little bit of a weird mixture there. However, I do think the E36 is a better option just because it has so much more aftermarket support for it, so many more parts for it. It's a lot cheaper to maintain, everything about it. It's probably just going to be generally a better experience to own an E36 over an E39. And for even less than the E39 costs, to be honest, it's kind of like a no-brainer to me. So here it is at 4K. Bringing in at $3,000 is going to, yet again, an Audi. I'm a big fan of Audi, bigger fan of BMW, but number 3K is the Audi A4 B7. The A4 B7, once again, is another car that I talk about quite a lot in my videos, but that's because it's a good car. Like, I can't complain. If a car is good, people get angry at me for putting like the same cars in some of my lists a lot, but dude, if a car is good and it fits the criteria for the video, obviously I'm going to put it there. The A4 B7 comes with a 1.8 liter turbocharged inline four, making 170 horsepower, and it is all-wheel drive. That is not the fastest car on this list. As a matter of fact, it's one of the slowest cars on this list, but it's an Audi, so it's paired with the all-wheel drive, which is very cool, as pretty decent interior, and this is like a late 2000s car too, by the way, and you can already find them for less than 3K, which is mind-blowing. Now, they do tend to have a little bit of issues when it comes to like this weird ticking noise, like the 1.8 liter have ticking noise issues, so there is like weird things that you got to look into before buying one of these, and just, you know, make sure you make the right decision and all that. But for under 3K, any Audi I feel like is a good deal. For less than 2K, however, let's go into a car that has zero issues whatsoever when you buy it. You can buy it with 500,000 miles and it's still going to run brand new. The Volvo 240. Now, yes, you might have forgotten at this point that this is a Euro list, not a German car list. But this is the only car that's not from Germany on this list because I just love the Volvo 240 that much, man. It comes with a 2.3 liter inline four, making 114 horsepower, and it is rear-wheel drive. That is the slowest car on this list, but it's also one of the cheapest. And on top of that, the car that's after this, even though you can find them under 1K, I don't recommend really buying that car under 1K. However, with the Volvo 240, you can buy it under 2K and it's still going to run for like another 200,000 miles. They're just that reliable. They do not break. On top of that, they are a blast to just rip around on. People, I see there's rally builds for Volvo 240s. There's drift builds, racing builds, off-road builds, all kinds of builds for these Volvo 240s because they take it. They're a tank. It's absolutely amazing. They're a Kanjali tank. It's great. But for less than $1,000, to be honest, probably the only German car that you can find under 1K is the Volkswagen Jetta MK4. You're not going to be able to get a super fast one, but you can get the model that comes with the 1.8 liter turbocharged inline four, which is pretty cool, but it still only makes 140 horsepower, and it's also front-wheel drive. These Jettas, though, are actually very reliable, especially if you get the TDI ones, which I'm pretty sure is this one, if I'm not mistaken. You're golden. So yes, under 1K is always going to be sketchy, no matter what kind of car you're buying. And with a Jetta, it's still going to be just as sketchy, but they are very reliable and they have a very good reputation for that. They like to just go for miles and miles and miles. They're not the slashy, if I'm being honest. They're a very boring looking car until you start to modify them. They're not the fastest either, but you can make them a little bit faster if you want to. But in terms of if you just want a Euro car for under 1K, a Mark IV Jetta is one of the only options you really have, to be honest. So here it is. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video of the one car for every price range of Europe. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's the freaking video. It's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Like yesterday, I was supposed to upload that video on Friday. I ended up going out to Atlantic City, and I was supposed to upload it on that Friday night, but we left at 5, and the ride down there was 4 hours. So we got there at like 10, and we get there at 10, and it's already 10 o'clock. It's too late to upload the video, and so I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to take a little bit of vacation, relax this weekend, and then upload it on Monday. And so that's why it was a little bit late. So I apologize for that. But thank you guys so much for the support on it anyway. Thank you guys for watching. Das Vidania, and have a nice night.